Hi there. Dean Walker. I'm the founder of a small outpost here in the interwebs called Living Resilience, and also a podcast, it's a YouTube channel called The Poetry of Predicament. And the purpose of these expressions on the interwebs is to offer support, resources, and practices for the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. This particular um, video is a primarily the reading of an essay from an author who's best known in the Medium platform. His name is Richard Lowenthal, and he's been one of the many writers speaking about the issues of collapse from one perspective or another on Medium for quite some time now. And Richard is also a member of one of our deep dive experiential groups here in Living Resilience. And this particular reading, this particular essay, is focused on his recent experience in one of the sessions of that deep dive group, in which he was particularly inspired by one of the other members of the group. We circle together on a weekly basis and we explore whatever the issues are that are coming up for us, the capacities that we'd like to expand in ourselves, and how that conversation went and the sharing, how that sharing went was very inspirational to Richard and to all of us, really. But he's the only one who wrote an essay about it. And he's very generously allowed us to post that essay as he's read it, in addition to just writing it and posting it. We hope you find it useful because it is a remarkably clear layout of why this work was created in the first place, and that's going on 10 years ago now. That I and we have been providing these resources and this platform for the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. And how the work here goes, ideally, is that a person might come in relatively new to the whole concept that there is something of great import going awry on our planet. And it usually lands somewhere in the zone of human-caused collapse of either Earth or human systems. How this progression often goes for someone who encounters this material newly, tries to get their toe in the water, so to speak, of what it's like to sit with others on a regular basis and expand our capacities individually and collectively to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. How that looks is very different for each person. This isn't a matter of a guru or a teacher teaching everybody the magic wisdom that's needed in these times. Nobody knows what's needed in these times, truly. This is the greatest challenge humanity's had to face at scale in the history of humankind. What we do is come together and we each discover what matters most to us and then curate a set of practices that will help us to expand those capacities to be present, ever more present with each other. Along the way, we tend to gain some skills in terms of holding space for one another, because this can be quite engaging and quite challenging and, um, and deeply moving uh, work, inner work. So, what I love about Richard's essay and his initial experience in this particular session, this circle session that he's writing about, is that it really snuck up on him. And I've lost count of the number of times that I've had that happen in my experience as well, where all of a sudden I'll have a depth of insight or a depth of my heart opening or a deep inspiration or a moment of ineffable connection and a sense of deep connectedness with others, with Earth, with the web of life itself. And it can happen at the oddest moments in these quite intentionally crafted circles of support. So I hope you will enjoy this reading of Richard's brief essay, his sharing of his experience of this level of inspiration. And just notice how he can't help but being moved even just by reading the essay that he's created. I find Richard's writing and his participation in the group consistently deeply moving, and always a contribution to the others in the circle. And I hope you also can get a sense of a response to a question that I was asked by the late Michael Dowd time and again. Dean, what is this work you do? What is it you do? And, I tried my best to give him a sense of this expansion of capacities that we might take on individually and together in group together, and how this is a sincere exploration into realms of the human shadow and also the human possibility and the miraculous nature of being alive in these times, and how they all blend together into an extraordinary experience of being very human together, and which is quite a step up from the despair and the nihilism and sometimes the disconnectedness that can infuse daily life for so many of us. So I hope you will get a taste of that. And if you'd like, there will be all kinds of ways, links in the show notes for this particular video. Should you want to come and join us or get a sense of what is the community space like online, what are these courses like that we offer, and for that matter, what the podcast episodes are like. Hopefully, they will be of use for you and perhaps inspiring for you as well. Whatever your track is in these times, we wish you the best. This is truly the time to find your people, find the groundedness, and the capacities to expand that matter most to you. We wish you the best in that, and perhaps you'll come and join us, sit in circle with us from time to time as well. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes. So this essay is called Overcoming the World and Finding Inner Freedom. This article will be rather experimental and radical. I'm going to focus on and explore possible ways to overcome the world and access a state of inner freedom and openness. What do I mean by overcome the world? In order for any explanation to make sense, I need to take you inside an interpersonal group process I experienced recently. This was an ongoing group session focused on, quote, collapse awareness and collapse acceptance. Early in the session, one of our members talked at length about how she balances full awareness of mounting social problems and looming collapse with her inner awareness of her deeper spiritual self. As she spoke, it became apparent that she usually successfully embraces full awareness of the horrors and insane nonsense consuming our societies, and yet also embraces the much wider more comprehensive experience of our own timeless, true self. Without going into all the details of her spiritual life and belief system, suffice it to say that for her, the outer travails and dire circumstances of our world do not contradict her own inner reality or sense of self, or prevent her from accessing that deep inner peace and happiness. In that sense, her beliefs and spiritual practices help her overcome the world and all its endless wrangling, conflict, control games, and suffering. Her clear, honest self-expression triggered something in me. I'd been feeling kind of off for a while, less centered, more irritable and frustrated, and far angrier. I felt increasingly upset and angry about the bizarre, cruel, and destructive patterns escalating in our society, the United States, particularly the horrid and inhumane policies being enacted by the Bleep administration. I refuse to use his name anymore, so we all know who Bleep is. The Bleep administration, Elon Musk and his empathy-challenged Department of Government Efficiency muskrats, his little slaves, his stooges. What got triggered was a sudden realization that I'm allowing these seditious cretins and social arsonists to invade my mind and, in effect, dictate how I think, feel, and relate to life. I've been voluntarily surrendering my mental processes and letting them live rent-free in my head and heart with highly unpleasant results. I realize that I've effectively surrendered to their stupid ideas, crappy social policies, quote unquote, and far-right nonsense merely by letting them and their hateful partisan bullshit dominate my thinking and my feelings. I don't agree with or support any of these things, yet much of my emotional and mental energy is bound up with what they say, do, and instigate. I saw that much of my anger and intense sadness about our nation was actually due to my feeling of inner helplessness, which in turn was due to my inner surrender to these widespread social dysfunctions and the ideas and people behind them. My inner surrender was by far the greatest contributor to my sense of helplessness, surpassing my actual practical helplessness. I saw that this inner surrender was producing intense pain and suffering in my life. My mind, emotions, and sense of self are all reeling and in pain. Then, in a flash, I saw that piling my angst and suffering on top of all the crazy oppression and suffering intensifying around us was helping no one. It wasn't changing or improving anything, nor was it helping anybody. It certainly wasn't helping me in any way. Rather, it was trapping me in an all-encompassing, deadly conspiracy of complicity and leading me to unknowingly let these destructive forces and people rule my thinking and my life. I was adopting all their absurd, nasty, oppositional ways of being and thinking and losing myself in the process. I realized this was truly a crazy way to live. What is the alternative? I now see that letting these super limited, hateful, and oppressive people and their hateful, limited ideas dominate my life and my reactions to life is the ultimate mistake I or anyone can possibly make. There is no inherent rule that says it's not possible to be fully aware of all the bizarre, destructive bullshit taking place in our world and also operate within myself from a clear, open-hearted, balanced, loving space. Here's how I understand this fundamental choice. We can easily get caught up in all the misery and pain of the world, get, quote, stuck there, be stuck in massive pain ourselves, and just keep adding to the problems. Or we can choose to be aware of all the misery and pain, and yet also choose to separate from it somewhat, stop enabling it within ourselves, and instead embody the deeper, far healthier truths of love, openness, sharing, growth, and learning. To be clear, I am not advising or recommending giving up on activism or staying away from current news. In no way am I suggesting that our inner happiness depends on cutting ourselves off from social conscience and awareness and the desire to actively help our fellow human beings. I'm just suggesting that we can keep pursuing these vital ideals and actions while simultaneously avoiding the dangerous trap of complete mental and emotional enmeshment or enslavement. I got it on a much deeper level than ever before that we can and should incorporate both ways of being into our everyday lives. Activism is crucial, but so is full inner freedom. Got to pause for a minute. Okay. Wow. The immediate difference I felt was astounding. It was as if a dark veil had been. Damn. I don't know, this is getting to me somehow. It was as if a dark veil had been lifted from my eyes, and my heart and emotions surged with new energy. I felt I'd uncovered a crucial secret or a hidden path forward. Suddenly, I felt free of the horrendous burden of my overzealous social conscience and mounting anxiety about our collective future. Nothing had changed outwardly. The US and the world are still on a fast track to hell. Climate change is accelerating, and multiple forms of global collapse are already intensifying. Yet inwardly, I suddenly felt and knew that I don't need or want to keep adding to the world's misery and stuckness. I realized that just by making this potent shift in my consciousness, I could free myself from the dark shackles of mindless acquiescence and mental serfdom. I can stop absorbing and passively enabling the oppressive forces of darkness that are crushing humanity and the human spirit these days. Unknowingly, I had been supporting and strengthening these anti-life forces through the simple act of unconsciously letting them manipulate and direct my attention and perception of our collective reality. So what comes next now that I had this intense realization, which will likely come and go like most realizations? I have no idea, nor do I have to know, quote unquote, in advance. I now get it. I see that trying endlessly to control and predict everything is just another aspect of our pervasive anti-life mindset. Sure, some planning is important and necessary, but just as often, it's better to sit back, relax, and let things unfold. So I have no idea how I'm going to incorporate this new knowing into my life or how it might change me going forward, but I trust the process. I trust my inner process. The one thing I know for sure is that I will never again believe I am a, quote, helpless pawn being shoved this way and that by hateful bad actors or fate. I will never again believe I'm being manipulated and controlled by vile, oppressive forces and people, at least not without my willing or semi-willing consent. Of course, vile, manipulative people aren't going anywhere. The numbers of such people may even be increasing. That's not my problem, though, in the sense that I don't have to let their ideas, beliefs, and actions overrule my inner self and moral compass, nor do I need to let their views and actions infect or ruin my life. I now understand through my own inner experience that it is very possible to overcome the world in this way. It's one of the best, healthiest, and most strengthening things we can possibly do for ourselves, our families, and for those around us. I invite you to ponder this and try it out for yourself.
Mhm.
That's it.
Uh,
No, 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 this is good.
I,
I did want to respond to what you were just saying about the shadow and
mhm,
how a lot of people don't really want to, do that kind of exploration.
mhm,
I mean, I've just found it to be so incredibly important and very healing for me.
mhm,
And I do find it extremely disappointing and kind of confusing in a way that most people don't seem to want to do this stuff. I mean,
mhm.
they just don't, either they're not interested at all, or they're interested but not enough to make the effort, or they think it's not worth it, or they're afraid of the pain they might experience, or I don't know what it is, but
Mhm.
I mean, I don't seek out pain. I mean, I don't want to be in emotional pain either, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I've gotten used to processes where, I go through something, I experience some pain, I experience some, fear, anger, whatever it is.
Yep.
And then usually, if I really let myself feel it, I kind of come out on the other side and there's a whole other experience waiting for me. It's like
Right.
much more open, this experience of openness and love, healing, whatever we want to call it. So I don't know, I guess that the exploration of the shadow doesn't seem quite so daunting or fearful to me anymore.
Mhm.
It's never comfortable, but
Yeah.
at least it's not like I'm not paralyzed with fear and I don't run from it.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. To me that seems like a normal part of human growth. I mean, it doesn't seem that weird to me.
Yeah.
And yet, for most people, it's like this whole other world they don't want to touch.
Yeah. Really well said. I
I mean,
couldn't agree more.
that freaks me out. I mean, it really bothers me. I mean, I don't know how our world is ever going to get it together, in the slightest if more people don't open up to this stuff,
Mhm.
which is really just opening up to themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my ultimate frustrations in life, I would say.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I just don't get it. I mean,
Mm.
there's been a lot of things I don't understand about people. I mean, my whole life, like that thing about, when I was a kid being, labeled nature boy and, because I like being out in the woods and I like looking at all the plants and animals. I like learning about them and somehow that seemed like this stupid, horrible thing to most of these kids I was growing up with. It's like, what? You know, Made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Still doesn't. So,
Yeah.
anyway, just that was all my response to what you were talking about.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, we're in an extraordinary time. When I scan out ahead energetically, it just seems like things are um, still accelerating, still intensifying.
Oh yeah,
And I guess since January, we've all noticed the various ways in which that acceleration, that intensification is going on in its own special way now. But there's something like the next order of magnitude of unconsciousness has set in.
yeah,
Like I just don't hear about it anywhere that the current administration and the current cultural atmosphere in this country including left and right and all the different flavors of people, we just don't talk about the environment anymore, which always perturbed me that we call it climate as if that's the real issue, the core issue, in which it's,
Yeah,
you and I both know it's clearly not.
right.
And that's that's rattling to me. It's one of a number of sedimentary layers that have set in of how encased we seem to be in an inevitability of our self-terminating nature. We're just headed that way toward the brick wall at the end of the alley. We're going there fast, and that's particularly harsh. Our level of disconnection from the web of life and from each other and from
Yeah,
our own
yeah,
inner wisdom just seems to be more profound than ever.
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's quite astonishing. I mean, the Bleep administration and all the people working with him and the cabinet secretaries and all these different people in charge of various departments. I mean, they all seem to have a pretty strong anti-environmentalism streak, and they're pursuing a lot of actively anti-environmental policies.
Yeah,
It's not just that they're neutral, they're actually ecological and environmental awareness and anti any policies and programs that support ecological awareness and healing and
absolutely.
all that. It's just amazing. It's like I don't know. Well, it's like the ultimate backlash, the ultimate backlash of the know nothings and the bullies and the morons and the
Mhm.
haters and the capitalists and the people who love abusing our planet for profit. It's like the ultimate backlash of all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I know it's frightening. I did want to mention since we just started off with me reading that article, was there anything in there that particularly struck you or that you feel like needs any clarification or anything like that?
I don't have anything that needs clarification. I loved that it just spoke to me like you were, like we're just sitting together next to each other on a park bench on a beautiful day, and it just went into my system in like nourishment. And
Great.
and
I
it's
love that.
it's really the kind of shockingly effortless crossing over one of the evidently kind of traditional thresholds of the wisdom traditions, the people who for thousands of years have dedicated their lives one way or another, whether it's in a cave or a monastery or whatever, to just taste for a moment this kind of realization that you're expressing in your writing, that
Hmm.
I think we're talking about. Just taste for a moment that infusion of the truth, truly the truth of the moment, behind all the drama, behind all the concern, behind all the anxiety, or in my case, the righteous indignation of what's right or wrong, or
Yeah.
behind all that is
Right.
this truth of the moment, which is the ineffable. It is this beauty, this infusion of the most profound connection and inspiration that is the only thing I know that is larger than the self-terminating darkness that we find ourselves on this planet in terms of the atmosphere that humanity has created. This is the only thing I know that is larger.
Yeah, and I noticed when I, read back, when I read that article back and when I, just read it out loud, um, yeah, I noticed that, I was almost entirely focused on, the blocks to that awareness or the blocks to that love, and then, moving past the blocks, but I never really talked that much about the actual inner experience of the love and the healing and growth and all that. I didn't really talk that much about it. It was more like I was sort of assuming that in the background.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that, I don't know if that's an issue or not in terms of, in terms of what I was trying to get at with the writing, but I mean, I kind of alluded to it a few times.
Well, Richard, if I may, I'm not pretending to be an expert in this. I have my own rich and thank God I have an access to the kind of space you're talking about, inner space that you're talking about.
Right.
So I can hear you, but I've been at this for a while in terms of how to speak this into an invitation for others to find it in themselves.
Sure.
And I don't know how to do it any better than you did it because you're speaking it into a form that people are in.
Hmm.
People are in those blocks. All we know is this saturation with the blocks that our self-terminating culture has infused in us since birth.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you use the perfect language. If you came in with all, bright lights and flowers and rainbows, people would, what the, I don't know. Okay, that sounds new agey,
Right.
so
Another
you just
another
spoke
dose of
right to
hopium,
where,
another dose of hopium, right?
right, right. You spoke right to, I think, where
Right.
where people most often are.